What is GitOps? If that's the question that you're wondering, then today's episode is for you. So today we are going to explore at a very high level what GitOps are and what it does for you and your company, your organization, and how it can empower not only a faster feedback loop, but also a safer and more reliable pipeline. And as well as just quality of life for your developers.
3, 2, 1, 0.
The No Channel.
All right. So to understand GitOps, you really need to understand DevOps. And one of the things I want to stress is that GitOps isn't in adverse to DevOps. It's not a separate thing. GitOps is a technique used by DevOps, not anything else. DevOps actually has a larger umbrella than GitOps, I would say. But that's maybe getting a little nitpicky. So anyways, GitOps is a technique used by DevOps. So really quickly, just a satellite view of DevOps is the compounding of development and operations. It's the marrying of those two. And what I really want to stress is this is a cultural thing more than it is a specific team. Now, you might have specific DevOps teams, and that's fine. But DevOps itself is more of a cultural thing than it is anything that you have a team for or things like that. So back in the dark age of software development, let's say like 5 or 7 years ago, you would have system architects, you would have operations, you would have a bunch of different teams that were responsible for a bunch of different things. And they all were needed for the deployment of your app. This caused long feedback loops. It caused a lot of different problems where, you weren't necessarily involved in deploying your application or the hardware that was required for it. So this is where DevOps was born. DevOps was building a culture that was going to support this and kind of gluing all of those things together. So you don't really replace system administrators. You're looking at things like SREs, which are just really the new age system administrator. And it's marrying them all together with a unified goal. And that is why I stress that DevOps is a culture. GitOps is a technique to make that culture a reality. Let's talk about a few things GitOps isn't. I think this is a really good place to start because I think that there's some legitimate confusion here as to what it's not. GitOps isn't Git only. That would be ludicrous. Let's talk about easily secret management. You shouldn't put your secrets in Git. That is just insane. And please don't ever think I say that you should be doing that. Not even one secret. No secrets in Git. It's not Git only. It is Git as the central source of truth for what your infrastructure should look like. And we'll get into details on why that's important. It's not just a Kubernetes thing. I read a lot of blog articles. I was doing some research when I was making this to see some other people's thoughts on it. And there was several companies that made the blatant statement that it was a Kubernetes design pattern. And I think they're very wrong. GitOps is empowered by Kubernetes. Kubernetes is one of the tools that you can use to effectively deploy GitOps. But it's not the only one. I mean, just to name a few, there's Mesos, there's Docker. Is Docker Swarm still a thing? I don't actually know. Docker Swarm, we'll just say it is 2021. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. Docker Swarm. There's Nomad by HashiCorp. So there's a lot of tools that fill the same need. And you could be using any one of those. So don't think it's Kubernetes only. The third point, and I try to make this with any technology I cover. I really like to encourage you guys to adopt these new technologies and things like that. But I want to also stress that it's not for everyone. Because I said it is a culture, it's not a culture for everyone. It's a culture that I think works for a lot of people, and could be beneficial to a lot of people. But I don't mean to state this as in that it's necessarily the right thing for you. So keep an open mind whenever you're learning anything new, that while it might sound cool and exciting, there might be reasons you can't do it. And I'll get to some of those reasons, some of the requirements for GitOps a little bit later on in this video. The very fourth one is kind of contrary to its name. GitOps doesn't require Git. Now, that might sound a little bit weird, but it's really your source control versioning mechanism is your central source of truth. So you could even do this with SVN, or as I prefer, MurOps with Mercurial. MurOps, while Marvel... Oh, no, wait, I think that's DC. Who's Aquaman? I don't actually know. But whoever owns Aquaman, they should start MurOps. But jokes aside, I think it's really should be called SourceOps because it's about your source control and using that as the base for your the key central repository of truth for how your infrastructure and applications should be deployed and how they should look. So again, if your company doesn't use Git, which I think most people do, you can still use GitOps or SourceOps if you want to call it that. Let's start a revolution. In fact, I am starting a new corporation and I'm going to be the lead. It's a nonprofit corporation and it's going to be called the Universal Global Software Engineering Naming Committee. And I'm the chair and UGSENEC, and we're going to make really good names because we have things like distroless containers, which doesn't make sense. And so I'm here to fix all of our naming problems. And GitOps is one of those because it's not just for Git. Source control. All right, I digress. So I think that you get the idea at this point. Git is the central source of truth for your deployments, but not just your deployments, also your infrastructure, for your quality control, for your security control. It is the central source of truth for everything that your infrastructure runs. So it's not just the code for the services, but it's for your infrastructure and everything. Now, again, I say everything. I do not mean your secrets. Never put your secrets in Git. Never put your secrets in Git. I mean everything that makes sense to put in Git. And that's most things, but not everything. So I think if you wanted to sum up GitOps in one sentence, you would say simply that GitOps is using Git as the single source of truth for your declarative infrastructure and services or applications. Now, I know that that's a mouthful and actually compacts a lot of data. I worked very hard to make it a very short sentence that meant a lot, and we're still working on breaking that down exactly what it means. Now, I made a previous video. I'll link it here. It was kind of a fun video that I made with my kids. My kids have been asking to make another video, so that you'll see them again here soon, about declarative versus imperative methodologies. And GitOps is very much declarative and not imperative. If you're confused, a very simple overview would be like a bash script is imperative. You do these commands, boom, 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 boom. And then with like a Kubernetes manifest file, that's very declarative. You declare the state that you want, and Kubernetes works to keep it at that state. All right, well, that was simple enough. So I've convinced you, right? You're going to start using GitOps, right? Well, let's talk about two more further topics on GitOps. First, let's talk about actually what problems this solves. You should never adopt something without understanding the problems it solves to ensure you have those same problems and that it meets your needs. It's just like Kubernetes. I don't recommend everyone use Kubernetes because it doesn't solve the problems some people are facing. The second is going to be the base principle requirements your application and infrastructure must adhere to actually deploy a successful GitOps operation. All right, the very first thing that we're going to talk about, problems that this solves, is visibility and security. Now, these are tightly coupled and basically revolve around the same thing, but the visibility and security comes from the ability. Git already has a way to cryptographically sign pull requests, and you can validate authenticity of who and what made that. So not only can you see who and what and where made the change to your infrastructure and application, you have a history and a record of it. So that is one of the really good things if you're looking at being a compliant application. If you're looking to get any type of compliance, you have to provide guarantees on your visibility, trust but verify, and your ability to verify what infrastructure you're running. And whether you're looking at compliance anyways, it's good to be able to know and to be able to verify. These are important things. You should want this. It's not anything about compliance. The compliance is there because it's a good best practice. The next things are developer experience. So with GitOps, it really empowers you to bring a very, very fast feedback loop. You have a QA and a security pipeline. You can have lots of pipelines run automatically on pull requests. That means security and quality control get to have a say in your pull request. Every single pull request, no matter how big or small it is. This enables fast feedback from those teams. They can be working on those pipelines all the time, and you get really fast feedback from them. So this closes that feedback loop. Not only this, it helps reliability. Now there's ways to, especially with Kubernetes, there's ways to deploy an application where if that application breaks, only like 2% of your requests were going there. And so it doesn't really hurt you that badly. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this so that if you do have a failed deployment, that it doesn't hurt as bad as it might. But Git gives you even another layer. It's as easy as reverting the commit to redeploying your app. All right. And this really goes into the immutable infrastructure. If all of your infrastructure is immutable, you're going to have these consistent states across your cluster. And really, you're going to avoid a very large number of the reasons you would have downtime. I can't tell you how many times a deployment failed because one of the servers wasn't configured the same way it was in development. This is why it's such a big deal and is a problem that a lot of people have that needs solved. Now, that's not all of the reasons that GitOps is awesome. There's more ancillary ones. There's other ones out there. And depending on your needs, there could be other ones that I don't even know about. But those are the ones that I consider really big and out there for you. Not only this, once you get these things set up, they can really alleviate a lot of the stress. Everything flows and works together quickly and easily. So anyways, those are the highlights. Take them or leave them. If you have something else that you think is really important, leave me a comment, start a discussion in Discord, or tweet it at me. Let's move on to some of the requirements that you're going to have to use and design your system with and keep in mind. So if your organization is going to adopt GitOps, here are some of the things you need to keep in mind. The entire system needs to be described declaratively. And I mean the entire system, from your application to the infrastructure it's running on, needs to be described declaratively. If you get any type of imperative in there, if you get human interaction in there, it starts to fall apart. So please just don't do it. Inverted Nike logo symbol, slogan is what I was working for. Just don't do it. All right. You've got to also have buy-in from the organization. You need your QA teams, your security teams, all your teams to have buy-in on this is how they're doing. This is why I say it's a culture, because everyone needs to be working with this culture or it's just not going to work smoothly. So make sure that you get your organization, whether it's lunch and learns or other things or watching this video. I don't care how you do it, but get your entire corporation, even if it's just 6 of you, on board. The rest of these are all about your tools. The third thing that you're going to need is a fantastic CI system. If you want an example, Jenkins. Jenkins is kind of janky, but Jenkins is out there. And there's a bunch of others. You need a CI system because that is how you're going to get that fast and accurate feedback. The next thing is the fourth thing here is you're going to need a deployment system. That's another important part of this. And if you want an example, that could be Argo. I really like Argo. At this point, it's probably my favorite of all the ones that are out there. These are just some of the tools you have to have. There's actually other tools that you can use for infrastructure and things like that. These are just some of the base tools that you must make sure you don't overlook at the beginning. Some of the other ones, like how to manage your infrastructure, are easier requirements. Of course, you have to have something that will use those declarative files to ensure correctness of your infrastructure. But some of these other ones you might not think about or might not have. All right, the last one of the fifth of the requirements, and this one was saved for last because it needs to have a little bit of discussion and I think is one of the most important topics out there. Actually, I want to do a whole video on this topic itself. You must use agents to ensure the correctness and alert on divergence. Now, you might have noticed I didn't say and have a pretty dashboard. So this is all around metrics and monitoring. Dashboards are fantastic. And do you know who loves dashboards the most? CEOs, board meetings, investors. And so if you're a person that's going to go to those people, they're fantastic. Absolutely have some dashboards. If you're a DevOps team, if you're a team that deploys, you need to have accurate metrics that will alert you. Staring at dashboards is really counterproductive and it doesn't really help that much. And it's really hard to take in all the information that you see in those dashboards. You can have some pretty fantastic dashboards, and I love having dashboards. You should have some dashboards, I think. But make sure that you don't get stuck and sucked in to making the perfect ultimate Grafana dashboard. It's more important that you have alerts. All right, so let's move on from that. We don't need to have that whole video in this one. That's really it to get you started on GitOps. That is the requirements that you're going to have at the start to even build out your infrastructure. And those are some of the benefits that you can enjoy if you deploy this way. Now, I was going to build out an entire thing here on the screen for you of what one of these pipelines might look like. But then I realized that that's really not the best way of doing it. And really this video was already long enough. So what I decided to do is we are deploying an entire infrastructure and service later this year. And I'm going to do an introduction video to that series, and we're going to build it out there. That way we have about 10 to 20 minutes of a video laying out all the pieces of the infrastructure that we're going to build. And that video might not get everything perfect because, sometimes plans change. I've done this a few times, so I have a pretty good idea, but all pretty good ideas aren't perfect ideas, and you shouldn't be married to your perfect idea or else you're going to miss an even better idea as you get into it. So that's what I'm going to do instead of trying to break that down in this video. All right. So if you want to see those videos, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, do all the things I try not to be like other YouTube videos, and that's probably why I don't have a whole lot of subscribers. But I try not to nag you. But if you're interested in seeing that and interested in seeing that all built out, do all of those things so that you can stick around and see them. All right. If you don't like GitOps, if you really don't like them, please leave them in the comments. I would love to see comments from people who have different opinions. Join the Discord. Let us know what you think there. And don't forget to tweet me your favorite technologies, your favorite open source projects, because I will cover those in the weekend news section. All right. I hope that you guys have a fantastic week. If you're still here and you've hated this video, there's two things to do. First, rewatch the whole video at 1.5 times speed. I don't know why I find that so hilarious, but it is hilarious. The other thing that you can do is go ahead and hit that subscribe button, stick around, and see if these videos get any better for science. Not only that, you could tell me why you didn't like this video so I could make it better. All right.